Good evening, everybody. My topic today is going to be oil and gas compared to electric. The nuclear part I'm just going to set aside. We all know the problems with nuclear energy and the cost involved. So I'm not even going to go there with it because I think majority of the world is moving away from nuclear because of some of the incidents that's happened in the world already. Well, let's just talk about gas, for instance. It has tons of work, tons of jobs. They pay really well. You don't need a high education. Some of them you do, but majority of the jobs you don't. So they really help support the economy in a lot of countries. Arab countries, even Canada, European countries like Norway. There's countries all over the world and that rely heavily on gas to make money. But the gas is destroying the world. It's destroying the world. So it's actually kind of, I understand why people would say they like it because they have the job, but we got to be realistic. Really look at what is happening. What has gas and oil done to the world since it was developed? Before that, the rivers were clean. I'm not saying it's the only form of it because there is other things that we do, but really look at this for a second. What has gas done to our oceans? What has oil and gas done to our water systems? What has it done to the environment? What has it done to the world in general in the last 100 years? It's got to the point where it's just not acceptable. How can we go through life looking at this as acceptable? Like, how can we say that it's okay to continue down this road? And I understand because I live in an area where electric vehicles just aren't as good of an option. They're getting better because they're starting to have longer distances and stuff like that. But could you imagine if we spent as much money on oil and gas as we just for 1 year on green energy, what we could accomplish? And what would that be like? What would it be like if there was everything was electric heat and vehicles were electric? Our systems around the world were electric. Or you could even get into another level, which is magnetic. We have the technology right now, and anybody says otherwise hasn't looked at what is available. We have the technology now to completely eliminate oil and gas industry. Like, we don't even need it anymore. We need it for maybe the odd thing, but we can replace that with something that's cleaner. We know plastics, we use it everywhere, but plastic again is hard to find. Why not create something that is better for the environment that does the same thing? There's a lot of people that want to see things just implode into itself and we go back to the dark ages again. I don't see that as a really viable option because then we'll have to start over again. And we could end up being exactly the same situation we are when the next time it comes around where we're advanced technology. We have to learn to do it now. This is important. We could say so many different things, but now is the time for the human race to wake the hell up and say, no, it's not acceptable anymore to do this. And how do you do it? Because I need a car to go to work, and there's not a lot of options. So what do? You have to get the companies and the oil industry and as well as the government to come on board. So, well, that seems like an impossible thing, but why does it have to be? If you stop using oil and start using electric, that would work. But that has to be supported by people and the governments. So if the governments do nothing and the people do nothing, then nothing will ever change. That's the frustrating part. Because we, as a human race, have the ability to change things so fast. Except it's always about money. It's always about jobs and everything else. We know people need to work. But what do you think would happen if we decided to change everything that we have to electric? That's going to create a work boom greater than the world has ever seen. It's going to create more jobs than the world has ever seen. And not just labor jobs, right up to very high scientific level jobs. It's going to create such a boom for so many years that people wouldn't have to worry about finding a job. It would completely almost eliminate unemployment because there'd be so many jobs available. People say they're going to lose jobs, but how many other jobs are you going to create? Because all of a sudden, every part of the world that was reliant on fuel is now going to be switched over to electric. That's a huge undertaking. Huge. And not only that, at that point, you can expand into changing the systems over. And you could go back into electric trains, for instance, instead of diesel. I'm passionate about this in a lot of ways because I really see the potential of the world. But the world doesn't see the potential in itself. The people don't. The people that do feel powerless to change the world. There are some that don't. So people look at a situation and say, okay, green energy makes sense. The question is, why is it not being adopted in North America? Look at Norway as a prime example. They're switching everything over to electric, subsidies, everything, whatever they can to get as many people as possible to switch over. However, they're still digging up oil and selling it, and that's what supports it. So people are saying, like, well, they sell this, they make money from it so they can actually make green energy. But if the world itself decided to do that, they would switch over everything. You would create such a massive boom. You could create solar panels, you can do the walkways. There is roadways as well, which creates it's an amazing idea, but I can understand how that could create some type of issues in certain parts of the world. But you could create it so the sidewalks themselves are. That's a first step. You can do solar energy, you can do hydroelectric in different places. And not only that, the tides, when they're coming, tides are coming in and out. Every time you flush your toilet, every time you turn your water on, you could have things built into the system that will produce energy. So why are we not doing this on a large level? It's all about our economy. But our economy is screwed right now. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that the whole world is teetering to the point where something happens, the whole economy of the world can collapse. But we still go on thinking with our eyes closed. There is a lot of people that think, but there's not a lot of people that act. We need thinkers that act, and we need politicians to grow a few things and to stand up and work with corporations, say, look guys, there's got to be another way to do this. I'm not saying all the oil industries and everything, they should take all the money and they should throw them away. What I would like to see is oil and gas industries seriously look at alternatives besides oil and gas. Because if they change, the world will change with them. The government would go. So why don't we really, I'm saying to the world here, to eat oil and gas industries, why not change into a green energy? Why not invest the money into it? Why not walk away from oil and gas and go and move into this direction? And you can do it very quickly. You have the pockets, you have the money. Why not do it? For the betterment of the human race. And people go, well, I'm only here for so long, I can't take anything with me. But it's not true, guys. When you die, the cycle continues. And you're going to come back again. And we're going to keep coming back until we get this shit right. So if you start thinking that way, then you start to understand that if you don't stand up and do something now, that we're going to be coming back to a place that's even worse and worse and worse and worse. To the point where something happens and resets everything and we start all over again, right from the beginning. Or we can continue to grow and advance with technology, with each other, with the universe. I want to see people wake up to the reality that is potentially there. Not living in domes, not destroying the world, not giving a shit about nature, not in killing every friggin' one of the animals on the earth, which we almost have. Don't you see the problem with that? Don't you see that all this diversity of life is on the verge of collapsing? Our economy is on the verge of collapsing. The whole ecosystem is on the verge of collapsing because we're too goddamn stubborn to change something. Like, how can we not just change? It's easy. The technology is so advanced right now that we can easily switch over to electric everything. Everything is there. And that's the frustrating part, because people need to stand up and say, we need to demand our governments to change. We need to ask the corporations to, come on guys, we don't want this anymore. Switch this, we'll buy your products, but make them available at normal prices so people can afford them. And don't be so goddamn afraid to lose a few bucks to switch over to something that's betterment of the world, betterment of the children and yourself when you come back again. Because you're going to come back again. And if you're one of these guys that support this type of horrible, horrific greed, what's going to happen when you come back again? Are you going to be that same guy that's going to continue to destroy the world? Who knows? But you might come back to the person that is the lowest, the poorest person in the world, that is stuck in a situation that he can't change from what you created. That's one possibility. A possibility you might come back and back over and over and continue until you learn to show compassion, to give a shit about somebody else besides yourselves. To give a shit about somebody besides yourself. And that is one of the biggest issues I see throughout the world, is people not giving a shit about somebody else. They only care about me. That's what the world is pushing now. Don't give a shit about anybody else except you. And it doesn't matter how many people you screw over, because it doesn't matter. We're not going to come back again. Well, you are going to come back again. And the whole world is going to come back again. And we're not going to leave this cycle until we get it. So the sooner we get it, the sooner we all can go home. Do you want to go home? Do you want to continue in an endless circle of chaos because we don't want to change a few things? We're given an opportunity right now that we never had in a very long time. An opportunity with that we have the technology to change the world in a way that we've never had before. Or maybe we did, but we wouldn't be here if we did, because that cycle would have already stopped. But we're back at a pivot point in history. A pivot point that we're given the ability to change or the ability to not. So what's it going to be, everybody? What's it going to be? Are you going to continue to live your life with rose-colored glasses, thinking there's nothing wrong, that all this stuff that is happening in the world is just going to go away one day, I'm going to die, and I don't give a shit about the kids, I'm not going to give a shit about my grandkids, I'm not going to give a shit about my own kids, because when I die, I don't have to come back. Well, you know what? You're going to come back. And you're going to be one of those kids. And you're going to have to start all over again. And the worse things get, the worse things are going to get. And you're going to have to live in that world. You don't think, people think, oh, it's going to end, you're going to go into heaven and it's all done. No, what I was told many times is that there is the heaven that we have here is like a reflection of a real heaven. And the real heaven is when we become enlightened and we get to that point. And everybody, it's not just one person that's going to go to heaven. It doesn't work that way. We all got to go together. Or that's the whole point, because we're interlocked as a human being, as a race of people, a universal race. We need to come together to grow and expand in a way that we can go back home. And we're not going to do that unless we work together. We're going to continue to come back and come back and come back and come back and come back until we get this right. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They think, nah, that's not going to happen. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. But I'm going for what I believe in and what I've seen. And they're telling me there is a true heaven out there. A place that is what we come from. It's our home. But we decided to go on this journey of learning and eventually come out of it. But that circle is going to continue over and over again. There's going to be no beginning, no end. The future is the past, because the future eventually comes back to the past again. And as we come around, we go up this spiral until we become ascended. Or we continue down, or we stay in one spot. There's so many ways that can happen, but every decision that we make, and we're on a point now, we can make a decision to make huge leaps forward. Leaps that can bring us into ascension very fast if we choose to work together as one family. God forbid we do that, eh? God forbid we actually come together as one person. Oh my God, the guy has black skin, the guy has brown skin. Get over yourselves. We're all human beings. We're all here to grow and expand and to learn. We're not here to ridicule one another, to spit on one another. I make more money than you, so I'm better. Sorry, buddy. You make more money because who knows why? You could be a good person. You could have done exactly what you need to do, and you deserve the money. You could have inherited the money. If you inherit $100 million and you've done nothing your whole life, and that one laborer worked their whole life, who do you think is a better person? It's what's in here that makes you a better person, not how much money you have. Because the richest people in the world, the most peaceful people in the world, are the ones that have inner peace and love in their hearts. And that person can be filthy rich, or that person can be completely poor with nothing. But they have everything because they have inner peace and love in their hearts. Because the more of us that learn to balance ourselves is when we're going to continue to rise in that spiral and become ascended. It is time, people, now, to actually change things. Now is the time to change things. Not tomorrow, now. Starting now, we need to work together to understand that none of us are better than anybody else. Money is pointless. It's pointless. You can't take money with you. Money doesn't even freaking exist in reality. But what's reality? Reality is that we're spiritual beings, and when we have a spiritual home. It's where we are all from. It's where we were created. Does money exist there? No, because money is an ideological, physical thing that doesn't really truly exist. It's like if you learn to fuse atoms together, you can make whatever you want. So when you learn how to do fusion, money becomes pointless. Because money is pointless. There's nothing to it. We use it to create something that makes us feel good. To buy things, to buy people, which is a problem in itself. Because you should never be bought. We look at countries of the world and all the past and all the things that we did, and all the people that we destroyed, all the people that we hurt. And you should feel ashamed. But at the same time, you have to let that energy go and move on past it and grow and expand and forgive yourself, as well as forgive the people. Because that's the only way we're going to move. It's the only way we're going to truly understand what the real purpose is. There's a lot of hate in the world. There's a lot of holding on to past anger and frustration. But why? What does it do to you? Holding on to something that somebody that hurts you, and you say, I'm going to get revenge on that person. What does that do to your soul? Except attract all that dark energy into yourself. Chaos energy is a better term. Chaos creates chaos, period. Chaos transformed to love creates love, creates balance, creates strength. Chaos is not strength. Chaos is weakness. When you learn to bring chaos into balance, it creates strength. A strength at a depth that you have it's just unbelievably powerful and knowledgeable and wise. The wisest men in the world have lived some of the darkest lives. To be a teacher, you need to to be a really good teacher, you had to have lived the thing that you're teaching. We need to work together. Respect one another. How are we going to do that? If we hate one another, we don't talk to one another, we don't look at one another, and we use money as an object of saying what a success. Money is success. You have a lot of money, you're successful. We choose oil and gas over something now. Like this is, I'm still going back to this again. I just find it so difficult to understand why we would ever choose gas over green energy. Ultimately, I'm not talking about individual situations where we don't have the money to buy it. I'm talking about as a community of the world. Why is this not being grabbed wholeheartedly and run with it? Look at the governments, look at or the big industry. And seriously, guys, the people, if anybody ever watches this, that it runs a huge corporation, to really look within yourself and say, why do we need to control the world? Why do we need to control people? Why do we need all this money that when we die, we don't take any of it with us? Do we control who we come back into? Do we have that capability of coming back as the same person over and over and over again? Interesting concept. But why would you come back the same person if you want to continue to learn and grow and expand? So you try different things. It's a complicated mess this the world is in. I don't like to attack anybody. I don't like to even attack the oil and gas industry. It's not an attack. It's a plead to really seriously look at nature. Look at all these beautiful places. And we don't need to go there. We don't need to go into these beautiful places and completely, really do a lot of damage to them. And pollute our groundwater. We don't even need, we're depleting our groundwater at alarming rates. In Canada, we're lucky, but how much longer are we going to be lucky for when it comes to the groundwater? The US, you're almost out of water. So what's left? You have water, and we could always filter salt water and make it drinkable. It's a possibility. But is there a way that we could harness groundwater and reuse it so we always have a source of clean energy, clean water? Is there a way that we can use rivers to refill aquifers? Because we have all these clean water that comes down, goes into the oceans, which is salt water. So maybe we already do things like this. Is because, like, realistically, I don't watch the news. I'm not a big news person, so I stay out of that. And there's a reason why, because I want to experience everything within my own soul and not necessarily be guided by other people. You talk to people, you learn from people, you grow, and you take within yourself and learn from it. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about following people blindly, or following people in general without really truly knowing the truth. So what do we do as a human race? Do we continue down that path, or we actually try coming together? We could say, oh, well, I'm not going to buy gas for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to park my car, I'm going to walk. That's great if you live in the city. Not so great if you don't. When you have to walk 20 miles, 30 miles, 50 miles, 60 miles to work. But we could change, this stuff could all be changed overnight. By having systems put into place. Like, we already know we have tubes that Elon Musk and a few other people were experimenting on, where you can put a vacuum, put a tube in there, and it goes like 1,800 miles an hour or faster. This is probably no limit on the speed. It's the limit on how fast and the movements and stuff like that we can move safely. But what happens if we've replaced all over the world, and until we created an aircraft that could actually fly with clean energy? That's one thing. That's one of the things when I look at the world. I look at all the industries. We have electric cars. We have all these other things that are electric, but we don't really have any electric planes. Too heavy, maybe. Batteries are really, really heavy. So what options do we have? But again, that's something we could easily, quickly overcome. Because we could use planes temporarily, use a cleaner fuel until we get this stuff figured out. There's all kinds of options. So how do we move forward? How do we do this? One of the first things you need to do is stop running away in fear of everything you're afraid of. That starts to bring you into a balance. You face your fears, you overcome your fears, you become stronger and you become stronger. And when you bring yourself into balance, you start to see things clearer. You start to see that you're no better than anybody else. That everybody's equal. Everybody comes back in some version. We just don't go into heaven and never come back again. There's a part of our higher self that sends stuff, new and new versions of herself over and over and over again. A soul, I think, can be dynamic and come back multiple times, attached to different forms of a physical body. It's just hard to watch the potential of people not seeing the potential within themselves. It's the hardest thing for me. Is to see people murder, kill, rape, fearful to go outside, judgmental, and thinking they have the right to hurt other people. I have the right. You did something wrong to me, so I have the right to destroy your life. it's kind of ironic because nobody can truly destroy you unless you allow them to. But to believe that you have the right to do it, that's what's scary. That's what's sad. And that's one of the things wrong with the world. As the people think they have the right to destroy the world. They have the right to destroy animals. They have the right to destroy other people because I got more money than you, so I'm better than you. Or I'm better looking, so you don't deserve to live because you're ugly. You don't deserve to have any babies because you're ugly. Well, you know who's ugly? The person who's saying those words and believes those statements. They're the real ugly people. They're the ones that if you look inside their soul, look inside their spirit, they're stagnant, disgusting inside. And that's what seeps out. No matter how beautiful you are, that seeps out. Would it be interesting to be able to look at people from their soul instead of their physical appearance? And then you really see who's ugly. Wouldn't it be interesting to do that? To look at the whole world, turn people inside out so you look at their soul. Only their soul, and see the true form of the beauty within their own hearts. And look at every single person in the world and say and see who they truly are. And the ones that have the brightest souls are our leaders. Then you would truly see when you turn the lights back on and then everybody becomes physical. You're going to find out pretty quickly that the leaders are the ugliest ones of all of us. Thank you very much. If you wish to do a service with me, you can go to my website at www.aminrastawakening.com. I do Northern Light pictures, and you can visit my website at www.josephbradleyroars.com. Thank you very much, and have a good day. And remember, everybody, be good to one another, respect one another, love one another. We are a family. We are one. Take care.